Back now at 7:41 with Sandra Day O'Connor, the first woman to sit on the U.S. Supreme Court. She served for 25 years, writing opinions on some of the country's landmark cases. And now she is writing again, this time a children's book called Finding Susie. Justice Sandra Day O'Connor, what a pleasure to have you here at the Today Show.
Thank you.
You know I want to talk about the nomination of Sonia Sotomayor, but let's get to the book first, okay? Finding Susie,
Indeed.
Because this is really kind of art imitating life. It's about a little girl, cowgirl, grows up on a big ranch, and all she wants is a pet, a little pet. How much of this is your true story?
Well, it's all true, but I had several horses because we rode all the time, and it was fun as a child to get on your horse and go riding. But horses aren't cuddly, and so I really wanted some kind of a cuddly little pet. And my mother didn't want any animal inside the house. She had enough trouble without putting animals inside. So I tried to make pets out of various wild animals.
Yeah, you had a bobcat, a tortoise,
yes,
hyena, was it? Or
no, I had
a coyote.
A coyote, and you cannot make a pet of a coyote. No. My parents told me that. The cowboys told me that, but I didn't believe them. Now I do.
Yeah, but you also had a javelina, which is like, what is that, like a wild pig?
They aren't pigs. They look like them, but they are actually not related. But they are amazing, fierce-looking, huge animals.
And one of them was named after you.
Well, the cowboys. There were two little, I guess, sister javelina, and the cowboys named them after me and my sister. I don't think that was much of a compliment because they were great big fat things waddling around.
You know, it's interesting. Look at the book, and some of these animals, to me, like the javelina, are very exotic. But in a way, you were sort of an exotic mammal when you first arrived on the Supreme Court back in 1981. First woman, the only woman until 12 years later when Justice Ginsburg joined you. 25 years on that court. Looking back now, do you miss it?
Not really. I'm too busy. I've just had more to do since leaving the court than I did on the court, believe it or not. What you might not know is that retired justices are required by law to sit on the lower federal courts, and that means courts of appeal for me. And I've been very busy doing that, so it has kept me in the business of hearing cases and writing opinions.
Do you ever look back at your years on the court and say, gee, that was the wrong decision? I wish I hadn't gone that way. Never.
No, it's a great privilege to work on it. And the court is a remarkable institution. It's really fantastic. And it works, I think, quite well, and it plays a very important role in the country. The framers were wise when they created it.
Justice O'Connor, when you retired, you let it be known that you would like a woman to replace you, and you were sort of disappointed when a woman didn't replace you. So what is your reaction to Judge Sotomayor's nomination?
Well, of course I'm pleased that we will have another woman on the court. I do think it's important not to just have one. Our nearest neighbor, Canada, also has a court of 9 members. And in Canada, there's a woman Chief Justice, and there are 4 women all told.
Do you think there's a right number of women that should be on the court?
No, of course not. But about half of all law graduates today are women. And we have a tremendous number of qualified women in the country who are serving as lawyers, so they ought to be represented on the court.
Yeah, hearing about Judge Sotomayor's nomination, do you sort of have memories, do you flashbacks of that process?
Oh, indeed. It's a miserable process. I wish
what is she in for?
A lot of tough questioning by the committee. For most of the court's history, the Judiciary Committee did not summon the nominees to answer questions. In fact, in the early days, often the Senate would act within a day without any hearing at all. The President would nominate, and immediately the Senate would act. Well, now it's a more deliberative process. And beginning, I think, with the nomination of Justice Frankfurter, the Senate Judiciary Committee started asking the nominee to come before it and answer questions. And that process grew. It was your fault. Television's fault.
Don't look at me. I wasn't there.
No, I'm just explaining.
Yeah.
That in time, the hearings began to be covered by television, gavel-to-gavel coverage.
Yeah. Let me ask you very quickly, Justice O'Connor, the opponents of Justice Sotomayor have brought up this term activist judge, and I know that that is a term that you have railed against in the past. What is it about that term that you object to?
I don't think the public understands what's meant by it. It's thrown around by many in the political field, and I think that probably for most users of the term, they're distinguishing between the role of a legislator and a judge, and they say that a judge should not legislate. The problem is, of course, that at the appellate level, and the Supreme Court is the top on the appellate level, rulings of the court do become binding law. And so it's a little hard to talk in terms of who's an activist.
And who isn't.
Yes.
Justice O'Connor, always a pleasure. The book is called Finding Susie. You still a cowgirl at heart?
Absolutely. I'm an unemployed cowgirl at the moment.
Thank you so much for joining us, Sandra Day O'Connor. And you're going to be David Gregory's guest this Sunday on Meet the Press. Look forward to that as well.